Hello everybody, it's your pal E.V.A here, and welcome to the first video of 2024. For this one, I thought that I would start off the year with another redraw video, but this one is a super exciting video. As you can see on screen right here, I am currently drawing out the thumbnails for this one. I thought I would go ahead and record the whole process of this one just to get a more accurate time of all that I'm doing, and also because this artwork that I'm drawing, I actually have it right on the right here as a reference, as one of my references. That drawing up on top is one of the oldest drawings I've ever made digitally. In fact, I believe it is actually the first ever digital drawing I ever made. I found it when we were looking, so I used to have a really old laptop that I used to draw on, and we were looking through it because we were going to clean it out, and I realized that there were a lot of my older artworks on there. So I saved them all and put them onto my computer, and I decided, because when I saw this drawing, I remembered, oh hey, this was my first ever digital drawing that I ever made. So I decided I would go ahead and give a try at redrawing it. Because a lot of things have changed since then. This character is my character Hope. I've talked about her here before, and she's gone through a lot of redesigns before, and the one on top was one of her first ever designs. And when I was drawing this piece, I imagined it looking very different in my head. I imagined it being looking like a lot better quality and more dynamic and stuff, but that's what I saw in my head. But because my art, my skill wasn't at that level yet, it wasn't able to translate. And actually this picture that I'm drawing here is also a bit of a redraw of another drawing I did it for her, which I'll show right here. And these two drawings are, I always imagined looking much more dynamic and being more skilled. I imagine my art skill for these drawings looking better, but because I was just a beginner, it really wasn't at that point yet. But now that I've gotten 5 years of digital drawing under my belt, and drawing in general, and that I've redesigned Hope, I have the whole story that she's a part of planned out. I know her personality more and her powers and the worlds, plural, that she's in. I thought it would be a really fun idea to go ahead and redraw this picture. So I'm starting off with the sketch here, getting everything planned out. I used a 3D model to help with the posing, and that was super helpful. And when drawing her braid, I added a little line to tell how the braid would flow, because before then her hair was just long and just down, but I changed it to be a braid, so whenever I needed to be in a more dynamic pose, I draw the line first to figure out where the braid's gonna flow, and then draw the braid itself. And it took me a while to figure out what pose I wanted her arms to be in when holding her spear, but once I got that down, I quickly sketched in the background, and I started with the line art. Line art's pretty simple, but one thing I wanted to mention is, while drawing this, I took a lot more time on it. Not a lot more time, it still took me about the same time I usually do, but I took more care into it because I really wanted the end product to look like what I always imagined the artworks I made before would look like, because it's back then, I couldn't make it look like I had in my head because I wasn't at that skill yet. In fact, for the other drawing that I showed you, I had to, I didn't even draw the clouds. I just stole a picture. I don't even remember where I got the picture, but I got a picture online and put the clouds in that way because I didn't know how to draw backgrounds, let alone clouds and a sky. I didn't know how to do any of that. But back in 2022, if you remember, I did actually work a lot more on backgrounds. And this year, I worked a lot more on, or last year, 2023, I worked a lot more on anatomy. And so I wanted to bring all of what I've learned into this piece with anatomy, background art, composition, and just better rendering, obviously. But my rendering style has been the same for years now, and yeah, it was really fun working on this piece. As you can see, I was adjusting some things and figuring stuff out in the line art. As I mentioned before, a lot of the times I'll do something completely different with the line art than the sketch, but this time I just stuck to the sketch. And then I did hatching shading. We love good hatching shading. Very fun. The light source in this one's coming from the far left hand corner, so it was easy to place in where the shadows needed to be. And yeah, I haven't talked about it much, but for Hope's redesign, I changed a lot about her over the years, but there's still a lot of elements that are the same. Her blue overalls, the light pink shirt, and the overall color scheme is pretty similar. I made her skin darker and gave her the gray fade in her hair for more visual flavor. Plus, I just like giving my characters gradients and their color schemes. And I added the golden color into her palette as a way to add in another color. And also, her one eye is gold now, so that makes sense. And her spear is golden too. Her spear design has actually stayed the same for years. I think it's like it's a super simple design. It doesn't even look like a spear. It looks like an arrow, but that's more story relevant now. But yeah, as you can see here now too, I'm drawing her little barrier effect. So Hope has the ability to create barriers. Think almost like Steven Universe, where he can create like the big bubbles. It's sort of like that, but more like a shield. And she doesn't only create it as a shield, but she can also create them from her feet, and she uses them in order to travel up in the sky. I don't know if you've read the book, the Kyoshi origin book from the Avatar series, but in that there are earthbenders who bend smaller pebbles and step up onto them in order to get to higher places. It's sort of a similar effect to that, but I imagine she can control it a little better, and she can just zip through the sky with ease. And yeah, I was also working on the background colors. For the buildings, I took more inspiration from my Mysteries of Dysteria comic, since this Hope in the story, I haven't talked much about the story that she's a part of. She's like going to be the main character of it, but in it, she's like she can travel to a bunch of worlds. So Dysteria is one of the worlds that can be traveled to. So I wanted to take some inspiration from that. This isn't Dysteria itself, but yeah. Also working on the shading colors. I used a very different color than I usually do for the shading color. Even though I do think I actually change it, it was at first more of a tealer blue that matched the sky a little more, but I changed it to be a bit more of a deeper blue just for better contrast, and I like working with that color more. I don't like working with greener colors. They're not the best. That's just me personally though, even though I did create like a couple more pieces last year than I thought I would with green in it. And yeah, just my typical rendering process. At this point, I got rid of the reference because I didn't really need them anymore. I'm not even sure why I had my older drawing up per reference. I think it was just like motivation as like a comparison. And yes, I actually added in the highlight and first before doing the rest of the shading with like the multiply layers and everything, just so I can get a better grasp of the lighting. And rendering braids is always a little tricky because I want to add hair shines to them, but because the area of the braid is so small, I don't know how much to add, and so oftentimes it ends up just looking like a dot on the braid. That's my bad. Yeah, and now I'm adding in, I actually decided to do some glow dodge layers instead of just add glow. That's another tip I have is play around with your blending modes. Don't just use one. And I also added in some bounce light. I love how artists will use bounce light as an effect and how they'll use it in different areas. I always forget to use bounce light. I always forget to use it. But this one, I remember to use bounce light. So I used a blue bounce light since the sky is blue and added it in areas where the shading was. And I want to get better at adding bounce light in this year because it's a really cool effect and I love how other artists use it. It adds much more depth. It makes the character blend into the background, but I never remember to. Eye shading process was pretty much the same as I normally do. Of course, it was 2 different eye colors this time, but I shaded them with the same 2 colors that I used for the shadows and highlights. Then I worked on the texturing for the backgrounds and these little buildings here. I didn't go too crazy with the buildings since I was going to blur them out. And I actually found this cool brush that created almost like this city skylight effect. With screen tones on it. It's really cool. I've been using it in my Dysteria comic. If I remember, I'll put the link to it in the description because it's a really cool brush. And I added that to add more depth. Here I'm also redrawing the barrier effects that she was using to teleport on or walk on, I guess, because I didn't really like how they looked the first time. And I tried to making it look like each one was kind of disappearing as she went further on, because I imagine after not having stepped on them for a while, they would just disappear. And yeah, the way I did that is I used some add glow and glow dodge effects to make them look shiny, because I always imagine with her magic she's able to make the effects look more shiny. And then I'm adding on some rim light. I decided to add on rim light on this one because I talked about it before in a past video, but I miss doing rim light. I don't know why I stopped doing rim light. I like doing rim light. And yeah, I also decided to add a little bit of a bounce glow. It's another effect I've seen artists use, but sometimes they'll add like an extra add glow layer that circles around the character that makes it look like the light is bouncing off of them a little bit. And I did that and I really liked how it looks. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I used that I want to use more that I never remember to. And for the light rays, I found this cool almost dapple brush that adds rainbow rays to the light, and I added it here, and it's really cool. It adds like that sort of real life effect where in cameras they'll have like a rainbow flare almost to them, and I really liked how that looked. And adjusting the background more, adding in more details and more depth, adding in some light effect because the barriers also create light themselves, so I added them onto Hope as well, and adjusting the clouds as well. A lot of this last part was just adjusting and stuff, and I got to this point and I was thinking I wasn't really liking how it looked just on its own like this. So towards the end, I actually decided to add an effect that I used before in some other artworks of mine. I also added these glitch effects to the barriers, which I actually do like how they look. But yeah, I was trying to add stuff in because it felt like incomplete to me. I even took a break from it and it still felt kind of incomplete to me, and so I decided at the very end to add a card border around it. If you've seen my Land of the Lustrous fan art video, you might be familiar with what I'm talking about, but basically I just use the shape tools to add these different shapes, like different squares and stuff around the picture to create like almost like the border of what you would see in a card. And for this one, I decided to add in like these little flowers at the top and bottom. And at first I was going to put in her name at the very bottom, but I didn't like how that looked. So I just added these circles that kind of align with the barriers of the cards. And once I did that, I realized that's when I was finally happy with it. So I decided that was it. And here's the comparison of the first drawing, digital drawing that I ever made, and the redraw. I am super happy with how this turned out. I think it's like, it definitely looks like what I always imagined the first drawing to look like. And here it is also compared to the other drawing I was talking about that's a little more closer to this one. But yeah, it kind of makes me a little emotional because it's like, wow, I finally gotten to the point in my art where I can make things that I see in my head, you know, actually look like that on paper or on the canvas. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you are an artist and you do redraw challenges like this, go see if you can find your first ever digital drawing and try to redraw it, because that's always super fun. And I'm super happy that the first digital drawing I ever drew was of Hope, because I love Hope. She's my baby, and I want to draw her more, especially because this year I definitely want to explain more about what this project I have is that I've been so mysterious about. It relates a lot to the current comics I'm working on and the comics I've made in the past. Lost Hearts is the only comic I've made in the past, but it relates to all of that, and Hope is going to be one of the main characters in the current time of the main project. And this year I'm going to make a whole video explaining what this mysterious project is and how Hope and the Dysteria crew and even the Haikus Magical World crew all aligned with it. So yeah, I hope that you'll stick around for that video, and I hope that you enjoyed this video because it was super fun. This artwork was super fun to work on, and I love how it turned out. I think the card effect, I was a little afraid that it would be too much at first, but I think it definitely was what this drawing kind of needed. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed the video. My artworks are on the description below. I'm gonna try to be better at posting on Instagram this year, and also other art programs. I'm thinking of posting on the community tab as well, and I have my comics in the description below, all of that there, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!